Let's open the book on another episode of the Black and Gold Report here on the UNCP Sports Network. It was a pretty busy week here at UNC Pembroke. We've got a lot to bring you from football, volleyball, and soccer. We've got our weekly sit-down with head football coach Shane Richardson and this season's finale of the Teammate Challenge. But before we get to any of that, let's go ahead and start with football.
The footage is a little grainy, so bear with us. The Braves are trying to bounce back from 2 straight losses to Catawba and Tusculum, their first road game in 3 weeks against Newberry. This, though, is the first play from scrimmage. Dom Sampson, a miscommunicated shovel pass, intercepted by Tyran Dixon. He takes it to the 3-yard line. Newberry punches it in for a score 2 plays later. Braves able to respond, though. Sampson rolling away from the pressure and heaves it downfield. Span hauls it out of the air into the end zone. PAT off the right upright. Braves trail by 1. 2 minutes later, though, Newberry's rushing quarterback fates the jet sweep here. Nick Jones takes it himself and finds his way into the end zone for a score, making it a 15-point game. And the Braves just aren't able to overcome the deficit. Start of the second quarter, Austin Barnes had 100 yards rushing on the day, and here he is breaking through 3 defenders and bouncing into the corner of the end zone to seal the game away. Braves fall to Newberry 28-6. They're now 1-4 on the season after their 10-2 campaign last year. They'll try to turn things around later today as they keep their 3-game road trip going against the Winged Bulldogs. 6 o'clock from Winged. You can catch it live at uncpbraves.com.
We'll be joined by Shane Richardson in just a few minutes to talk through the first 5 weeks of the season. But before we get to that, let's turn our attention to soccer.
Now, it's been 3 weeks since Braves soccer was back at Lumbee River EMC Stadium, and boy, did they make their time count when they're back home. A barrage of shot after shot after shot on Georgia College goalkeeper Ashley Graham, while Gina Ryan, on her end, put together some fantastic saves. The lone goal of the game from Haley Stewart after a foul on Georgia College's Hannah Asbell, and Stewart able to punch it in for her first goal of the year. Braves win 1-0. Here's head coach Lars Anderson after the match.
Well, I mean, I hate to repeat myself, but I've always said that in the PBC, every win is important. 3 points at home against a quality team like Georgia College. Let's remember that when we played them last year, we had to come from behind. We were down 1-0 at half, earned a penalty kick to go 1-1 level, and then won the game in the first overtime. I thought it was a little bit of a different match tonight. I thought we dominated the game. Obviously, had a lot more of the goal-scoring opportunities. Had a couple of really set pieces where we should have done better. But, the 1-0 lead in soccer is the scariest lead you can have. It doesn't matter what the scoreboard says. You're out shooting them, 25-5 or whatever it was. All of a sudden they get a counter and bag one, and it's 1-1, and you're left scratching your head. So I'm proud of the players for staying composed. I think we have a very mature core on this team who understand the difficulty in winning games and understand that you have to stay switched on. We made a bit of a meal of it late in the game, but I'm really proud of them. This is how you win games in the Peace Belt. You grind them out and you earn them.
That wasn't the only game the Braves played this week, as a matter of fact. Georgia Southwestern just a couple of days later, and when I said it was shot after shot after shot against Georgia College, 5 more shots coming up against Georgia Southwestern. 2 more finding the back of the net. 1 from Stacy Scott off the header. Stacy Scott again with a one-timer. And here's Collins in the 88th minute. Braves put on a fantastic showing against Georgia Southwestern. 5-3 on the season. 3-1 in the Peach Belt. 3-0 the final. Here's head coach Lars Anderson after the match.
Stacy gets the brace today, ends up tying up with the team lead at 3 goals. Was there any challenge to Stacy, the junior, about kind of elevating a little bit to start attacking that goal total where she was a year ago?
Well, I think Stacy puts a lot of pressure on herself. Good players do. Good players expect great things of themselves. I knew that Stacy would start scoring goals again. She's too good a player not to, and we try to encourage, not pressure players. And I had a feeling that Stacy would start scoring again. Obviously, she scored early on in the season and then kind of had a bit of a drought. But Stacy's too good a player. If she doesn't score in 2 or 3 games, somebody else will step up and score. But she's going to get her fair share. She's big. She's strong. She's a technically gifted player, and more than anything, she has a tremendous work ethic, and she has the right teammates around her. So I had a good feeling that today might be the day she'll get a couple of goals, and I feel good about the rest of the season. She'll score more goals.
On that second goal, you had Shannon O'Neill and Alexis Pittman both helped to create the nice combo for Stacey as well. Was that maybe your favorite passing that you saw of the match in terms of setting that up?
Well, it was a pretty goal, and we talk a lot about the speed of play and one-touch passing, and we work a lot on that in training. So, of course, when you see things that you work on the training grounds coming to play here at Columbia River EMC Stadium, of course, it's it's pleasing to the coaching staff, and I think the players know that I'm proud of them. I think they kind of walked away from that goal and they were all smiling and looking over the bench. They knew they did pretty well, and I gave them the thumbs up, so I was proud of them.
And finally, Coach, Kimsey Collins gets her first career goal as well this afternoon. Just what can you say about that, and probably a really special moment for her?
Oh, well, that's why you coach. Here's a player who hasn't gotten a tremendous amount of playing time in her career and really has had some challenges in her career. When she first came here as a freshman, she redshirted because she had torn her ACL her senior year of high school, and it took a while for her to get back into things, but she's finally playing without a knee brace, and her speed is better, and her touch is excellent. Kimsey is a very cerebral kid and a very cerebral player. She understands the game, and boy, was she feeling it the last 15 minutes of the game. I thought she was the best player on the pitch for 15 minutes and could have had a goal about 2 or 3 minutes before she scored her first goal. And I gave her the box score. I think she should frame it. College, you know how hard it is to score in college soccer. Many players leave the game and never score a goal. She will forever be in the UNCP record books as a goal scorer, and you couldn't have a better kid get that honor. And I'm so proud for her. This is why you coach.
All right, Coach.
Beautiful sentiment from Lars Anderson, and that's a man that's seen his fair share of players in his 17 years at the helm. We hope to have a one-on-one with him next week to catch up on his thoughts of the season, so keep an eye out for that. Last but not least, we've got Braves volleyball.
Well, the girls could really use something to celebrate about after their most recent matchup against Fayetteville State. A 3-set sweep in favor of the Broncos. The Braves were outmatched in every statistical category. Madeline Ashwell led the way with 9 kills. Casey Bell with 21 digs, and April Tankersley, Kiara Price led the way with only 2 blocks apiece. Braves had another game on the road against Mount Olive that went a little more in their favor, but still unable to pull it off. Final set scores in that one, 26-24 in favor of the Braves, 27-25 for Mount Olive, but then it went downhill for the Braves from there. 25-13 in favor of Mount Olive. Braves got back in set 4, 25-16, but 15-10 was the final in the 5th and final set, and the Trojans won that game. Braves only 3-13 on the year. They do have a game on the road coming up in just a couple of hours, 1 o'clock in beautiful St. Augustine, Florida, as they take on the Flagler College Saints. Go to uncpbraves.com to follow the live stats.
That's going to do it for segment 1 here on the Black and Gold Report. We're going to step aside. When we come back, though, we've got football head coach Shane Richardson for our next 2 segments. Keep it here on the UNCP Sports Network. Back in on the Black and Gold Report, we've got a great segment in studio. We're finally joined by head coach Shane Richardson here in our Old Main studios. Coach, how you doing?
Great. I appreciate you having me.
It's glad to have you here in studios for the first time this year. Now, a couple of things to talk about. Obviously, team in a bit of a slump after last week's loss to Newberry. One of the big things I want to touch on is the rushing yardage. Your team averaging 88 yards per game over the last 3 games. It's a dip down from what you had against Elizabeth City State. What do you think is contributing most to that dip in yardage?
Well, I think contributing most is obviously how young we are on the offensive line and how inexperienced we are. And so when you've got 5 guys up front that are really in their first or second year of playing, and a lot of them, I looked out there on Saturday and we have first-year players out there on the offensive line. It's going to be tough to go against more experienced, stronger guys that have developed over the course of their careers. And so that right now is obviously a factor in what we're trying to do in terms of the running game. And, it's something where I look out there and I see a lot of really good effort, and it's not a lack of that. It's obviously just a little bit of experience and size and strength that kind of comes up against you during a 4-quarter game.
And it's something that can increase exponentially as each game goes by.
Absolutely.
Each week, these guys are getting another game's worth of experience.
Absolutely. That's right.
Now, looking at the defensive side of things, last week against Newberry, second game in a row where your defense did not force a turnover after forcing 11 through the first 3 weeks. What changed?
Yeah, I think the last couple games, those teams have posed a little bit of some moving and motioning and shifting and things that our defense has had to adjust to. And I think when you go into a game plan like that, you're thinking, and you've got to, as coaches, you got to try to keep it as simple and confident for them. And as players, it's obviously something that's always in the back of your mind that you want to be right. You want to make sure that you're matching up the calls and getting aligned properly and that type of thing. And so I think sometimes when there becomes a little bit more going on out there from an offensive set standpoint, I think it doesn't allow the defense to play as a fast and aggressive style as we're used to and what we want to.
Well, considering a lot of the motions that Newberry put on, they ran the option a lot, and it seemed to keep your defense a little fragmented, led to some big gains. What sort of adjustments do you think will have to be made in practice to avoid that from future opponents?
Yeah, I think what Newberry did so well was they had a very athletic quarterback that was a threat, and they used him very intentionally in the run game. And so what happens there is when you've got the quarterback that you've got to account for, you're down one extra fitter in terms of on your defense. And so you've got to account for quarterback run game and coming up with an extra guy getting in the core of the formation to try to fill another gap. And so, we've got to make sure that defensively we're very sound with understanding how that's going to be utilized here as we go into the back half of the season, and just make sure that we're very sound in terms of our run gaps.
Now, similar to the start of the Tusculum game 2 weeks ago, the Newberry game started with a very early on turnover. The Tusculum game was in the returning kickoff. The Newberry game was on the first play from scrimmage. Do you think that led to a slow start from your defense, them having to get out there much earlier than they expected?
Well, I think it's extremely uncomfortable when your offense goes out there, first play of the game, and boom, you've got to go into a sudden change mode and respond to that adversity. And so defensively, it took 2 plays for them to score 4 yards. And so we've got to be able to kind of bow up in that point of time, but obviously not an easy start to the game for the defense. And I think at that point in time the momentum could have started to kind of kick off in the wrong way.
All right, Coach, well, thank you. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, Coach Richardson is going to stick with us right here on the Black and Gold Report. Back in on the Black and Gold Report, Matt Sabalas and football head coach Shane Richardson. Coach, one more segment to get to next week's game against Wingate. Now, what's been the primary focus in practice the past few days leading up to this game?
Well, I think a big part of this week has been about making sure that we're keeping some fundamentals intact. Yeah. I think when you go in a season and you're struggling to find wins, you want to make sure that the morale is staying high. Yeah. You want to make sure that there's some motivation there to come out and continue to perform and find ways to improve. And you want to make sure the energy level is there. And
Absolutely.
So some of the fundamentals just in the program, I want to look out there on Saturdays and make sure that our team is the hardest playing team out there, giving the most effort.
Energized.
Giving the most energy, being the tougher team, the more grittier team. And that doesn't take any talent or skill or speed or strength. And I want to make sure that our team does that, and so we want to train that as well, and that's how we're practicing.
Well, considering energy, Wingate undefeated this season, and they're coming off of a bye week, so they're going to have a lot of energy. They're going to be pretty hungry for this home matchup. What are you expecting from Wingate in general?
Yeah, I've always respected Wingate's program, and Coach Reich over there does a great job. they're going to be well coached. They're going to be tough. They're going to be physical. They're going to have good athletes in the skilled positions. And so, I expect them to be a well-prepared team. And like you say, they're coming off the bye week. And so that typically, that can go both ways. I mean, I guess it just depends on the maturity of your team, how you're going to handle a bye week the very next game. And so, maybe we can kind of catch them off guard a little bit too. And, I'm hoping our team is able to step up and really take some people by surprise here. And, I think when you look at records, if you look at us and say that you're 1-4, and what I would say is, we're going to try to play above that and make sure that we don't make people sleep on us.
Now, do you think just maybe after the recent slump, 3 straight losses leading into this game, would it be beneficial, even with the bye week coming up, could be a good time for it, just for your team to get a mental reset? You talk about the energy necessary for this week's game against Wingate.
Yeah, I think whenever you have a 10-game schedule, about that week 5, that is about the breaking point where guys start to get into a mode where physically they've gone through the routine and the rigors of a normal practice week and getting ready game in and game out and kind of going through the bumps and bruises that occur during the Saturdays. Yeah. So the bye week is it's gonna fall at a great time for us, and I think it'll be well served and well used. We're gonna definitely make sure our players are fresh and ready. We're gonna obviously keep them moving a little bit to keep them, in shape and ready to go for football movements. And yet we're going to try to make sure that they come back and motivated for the rest of the 4 games that are left.
Now back to Wingate, one of the best teams around, you could say nationally too, when it comes to ground game on both sides of the ball. They're a fantastic rushing team, and their rushing defense is one of the best in the country. What's going to be your plan to counteract both of those sides? Yeah,
I think what it is we've got to be fundamentally sound first and foremost. And the second thing I want to see is I want to see our guys out there with some competitive spirit, okay? Yep. So when you talk about stopping the run, you talk about guys needing to not be afraid of physical contact. Yep. You got to get off blocks quick, and then you got to swarm to the ball. And making sure that everybody stays in their gaps while you're doing that is very important. And then when you're running the ball, you got to have guys that are able to push the pile and try to get that extra step or 2 steps or 3 steps or whatever that is to push their guy and block their guy and to try to open seams and creases. And we have good enough running backs to where you can make something happen offensively if we're able to do that.
Now looking at the quarterback situation, not sure if you have any liberty to discuss this currently, and I understand if not, but Stowe took a big hit in the game against Newberry, helmet-to-helmet contact. The flag was called, and he was taken out on the immediately next play. What's the update on him? Is he all right? What's just for the folks who were following?
Yeah, to my knowledge, everything is fine with Connor, and he is back in the mix and good. Pursuing practice and preparation as usual, and we're ready to go with him and Dom.
Good, perfect. That's all I need to know on that. But talking about Dom, recent slump. Obviously, his last 3 games haven't gone in the best of sense for a redshirt freshman. But one quick wrap up. He's been so good at overcoming adversity. How's he been going through this slump?
Yeah, I think he's very steady, and you really don't get the impression that he is gonna, kind of let that take over and him kind of start to become a little disappointed or discouraged or anything like that. And so we've got to make sure that we keep him going and keep him confident, and he'll be just fine.
All right, Coach. Well, as always, we appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you, Matt.
We'll talk to you again next week, but for now, we're going to take one more break. We'll be right back here on the Black and Gold Report. Wrapping up this edition of the Black and Gold Report, we've got a great final segment for you. It's the conclusion of this season of the Teammate Challenge for the Fall Athletics. Now, last week, Stacy and Christina from the soccer team scored 5 points in our championship round. Now it's time for the challengers, Mac and Cayce from the volleyball team. Without any further ado, let's hand it off to Trevor.
Makaylah and Cayce, you guys have the last shot to try to win the Teammate Challenge. So you're up against Stacy and Christina. You don't know how many they've gotten right because we taped these on the same day. Everyone at home already knows the score that you have to beat. Put that up on screen right now so that they can see it. And then we will get going. The clock will start after we read the first question. You guys look pretty confident.
Yep.
Here we go. If Makaylah could be any famous person, living or dead, who would she be? No, you guys disagree. If Cayce was ordering a pizza, what toppings would she want on it? No, you guys disagree on that.
God!
What time does Mac usually get up in the morning? Teammates, you might have a chance of knowing this.
Yes.
9 a.m., yes.
Good job, good job.
What is Cayce most fearful of? Like biggest phobia?
I don't have a phobia, but okay.
Bugs and clowns. Does Mac have any allergies? If so, what are they to? No allergies, correct.
Good job.
You have 2 right. Which parent is Cayce most similar to, her mom or dad?
Oh, that's easy.
Yes.
Love you, Mom.
3 correct now. Who is the last person Makaylah sent a text message to? Yes, those are correct.
Yeah!
Who would be more likely to survive the Hunger Games, Mac or Cayce? Mac, yes, that is correct.
Come on, guys, let's
What is
go.
Cayce's favorite makeup brand?
I don't know.
Oh, you should
Nope,
know.
not in agreement.
Oh,
How would
duh.
Makaylah be described in 1 word?
Me? Okay. A lot of things, but whatever.
Nope, not in agreement. What food item can be most commonly found in Cayce's refrigerator? Last chance on this
I
question.
don't know this.
Yes, you guys got it correct. That is correct. That's 6 correct answers.
Yeah.
I almost picked milk.
And
but-
that was to win it. Actually, that 6th question was for the
Let's
win.
go! Oh yeah, we beat
Let's
the
go.
best
I was
friend.
gonna
Just-
say milk, but it wasn't.
I was about to say milk too.
but it wasn't food.
You
I don't
guys,
know why I put eggs.
you
It's
guys
telepathy.
just beat the clock.
Let's go.
How does that feel? You guys just beat
I'm happy.
2 people who've been friends for 12 years.
Yep.
I know.
I feel great. I had no doubt in my mind.
And how long has your guys' friendship been?
2 years. Going on 2 years.
All right, let's keep going strong, right?
Oh yeah.
All right.
That's
well,
awesome.
I'm excited.
Yeah, congrats to you guys, and we'll have to see how the winter teams do when their challenge comes around. Maybe we'll bring you all back at the end of the year, but congrats on winning.
Awesome.
I'm speechless.
Yeah.
Can't believe we just won.
Hurry
Hurry
up
up
and get this one
online.
That was
fast too.
Yep.
That was like 10 minutes.
Well, thank you, Trevor, and thank you, girls. And there you have it. Cayce and Makaylah of Braves Volleyball are our champions of fall. Now, don't get too bummed, but we'll be taking a break with the Teammate Challenge until the winter sports get rolling. But we've got plenty of fun segments in the interim to hold you over. That's going to do it for us here on the Black and Gold Report for our Old Main Studios crew, my producer, Trevor Williams, and of course, you for tuning in. We'll see you next week right here on the UNCP Sports Network.